Welcome back to another episode of Georgeonsports with me, your host, George. And I'm so excited to say that on today's show, we've got the one and only NBC Sports, Peacock TV, Lawrence Jackson Jr., a.k.a. the Fantasy God, or Lord Don't Lose for those of you who follow NFL fantasy. Bro, how are you? And thank you for coming on the show.
You know, man, I'm good, man. I can't complain. We all at a time right now. You know, it's kind of bittersweet. We love these championship. We in championship weekend now. So it's like we want these games, but then you know the end of football season is so close. So now's the time to cherish these games because we ain't going to get, at least from this league, you know, we won't be back on this for several months. So, man, hopefully we get some good football games going on.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it myself. It's the only downside. Obviously, we want to see the great games, but then we know we ain't got football for quite a while, so that's the only downside. But with that being that it's championship weekend, we're going to get straight into it, and we're going to have a quick look at divisional weekend, where we saw the Jaguars lose to the Chiefs in a game that, you know, a lot of people have been talking about for obvious reasons. But I want to ask you what your thoughts on that game were, in particular, the moment when you saw Patrick Mahomes sprained his ankle. What was going through your mind at that point?
Yeah, well, you know, the Jaguars was playing good football the first half. The first half, they was actually getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes, which led him to scrambling, which led to that injury. You know what I'm saying? So when that happened, you know, and he took some time out of the game, that was the Jaguars' chance. Even when Patrick Mahomes came back in the game, you know, he obviously was limited. You know, so that was their chance to, you know, pull out the upset. But a very important drive, 98-yard drive led by Chad Henne, where he went 5 for 7, 23 yards, and ended up throwing the touchdown to Travis Kelce. That was a pivotal drive because without that drive and score, they don't win the game outright, maybe without overtime, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, the Jaguars are a good team coming up. Look forward to seeing them next year, but they kind of dropped the ball. Seeing as how they had, but on the other side, you know, Patrick Mahomes just being the Superman, he the hero, and that's exactly what he was. They didn't get any pressure on him once he got the injury. When he had it, they was getting all types of pressure on him, but once he got the injury, they couldn't get no pressure on him. And, you know, with most NFL quarterbacks, if you don't get no pressure on them, they're going to chop you up. Now, you don't do that against Patrick Mahomes, that's a loss.
So you said something there which I want to touch on about getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Now, he's obviously going to be playing against the Cincinnati Bengals, and he is banged up. There's been a lot of talk about whether he's going to be healthy or not. Obviously, you've seen what's going around on Twitter, the highlights of him jogging. And I'm not going to lie, I've had a high ankle sprain. I played for 11 years. I played running back here for 11 years, and I've had all kinds of sprains. And a high ankle sprain, that's not something you can come back from in 1 week. So a part of me is thinking, what on earth have they done for that recovery? But the other half of me is thinking, if the Jags couldn't get any pressure on him whilst he was hurt, are the Cincinnati Bengals going to be able to do that? Because they normally like to rush 3 guys, 4 guys. And I'm wondering how this game is going to play out. Do you feel like these guys are going to get the win?
You know, nah, not really. And, you know, it's different, you know, if you a running back or damn near any other position besides quarterback, because if you don't get that pressure, and let's say Patrick Mahomes at 70%, which his 70% still better than 95% of the quarterbacks in the league, you know, he going to be all right. Like, he don't got to run and make them certain cuts like a running back do or a receiver do or any other skill position do. So it wouldn't limit him as much as it would another position.
We're going to move swiftly on to the game against the Giants and the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, you know, returned to football after they secured that number 1 seed and had the bye week. And the Giants were completely blown out. 38-7. You know, a lot of people were a bit frustrated because the Giants pretty much didn't show up. But what's your take on Daniel Jones and how much has Brian Daboll improved him as a guy from last season, the season before last, and to this season now?
Yeah, well, Daniel Jones' biggest improvement was coming with, you know, not giving the ball up, no turnovers. That was big because him not turning the ball over was the difference in all of those close games that they won this season. You know, the offense was it was solid. You know, it was a confined offense. You know, you couldn't just, you know, you can't rip the Band-Aid off and go crazy and throw all these passes everywhere when you have a Daniel Jones and you don't have, you know, you ain't got no stud receiver out there. The line is okay. You got Saquon Barkley. You got an all-pro left tackle there, but, not crazy things to work with. So, yeah, as far as, protecting the ball, Daniel Jones made those type of improvements. But as far as playing the Eagles in the playoffs, there was a lot of people feeling like they could pull the upset. But what I asked those people is, what did you see in the two games at the Giants, specifically in the Week 14 game? What did you see that gave you the inclination that they could pull this upset? Like, they got whooped. You know what I'm saying? Funny thing, I actually predicted that the Eagles would score exactly 38 points. I told my partner in the text, I ended up posting it. I was like, look, this game is going to be 38-10. It don't matter. It ended up being 30. They couldn't even get to 10. They got the 7 points right there. It was no shot to me. Eagles are clearly a better team, and now they'll get a much tougher, a team that matches up well with them, obviously, in the 49ers. But, yeah, Jalen Hurts and them, they just ran all over them. They did what they wanted to do, and the Eagles could win games in different types of ways. That day, all they needed to do was win it on the ground.
And Daniel Jones he's been known for that. He's been scrambling a lot. He's a big guy. I don't think people realize how big and fast he actually is. And he's done that really well this season. But moving on to the Bengals and the Bills game, I mean, this game was, I want to say it was a shock to a lot of people. I predicted the Bills to win. And, I had that handed to me, so I take my humble pie. It was a snow game at home in Buffalo. But, I mean, it just seems like Josh Allen and that Bills side, there's some clear inefficiencies. They ain't got no run game. Josh Allen can't be the QB and the running back. It never works that way, right? Diggs needs help. They can't just have Diggs as their main receiver. They got no one to put pressure on the quarterback, snow or no snow. What's your take on the Buffalo Bills, and where do they go from here?
Yeah, well, this whole offseason, people told me that dude that was supposed to, that other weapon was Gabe Davis. That's what people told me. That's what they told me. I don't know. Now it's like, oh, he need another. Well, y'all told me it was Gabe Davis. Now, I picked the Bengals to win. Obviously, I didn't think it would go down like that. The Bills provided very little. Like, if Dak Prescott was the worst quarterback of that weekend, Josh Allen might have been right behind him. They provided no reason. The Bengals came out, and, that game they played a couple of weeks ago, when DeMar Hamlin got hurt, the Bengals, they went down and scored the first drive. Remember, they scored 7. The Bills put up 3. Bengals was getting ready to do it again. So it's like they literally picked up where they left off, and it makes sense. Yeah. So that lead me to. I mean, the Bengals just a better team, and in that game proves it, because it didn't go down to the wire. It wasn't two quarterbacks trading back, scoring back and forth. Like, the Bengals dominated. So that's how I feel about that. And maybe the Bills will get that other weapon. And Von Miller not being there, that helped. I mean, that hurt them. So they had some problems. But at the end of the day, it's playoff football. Put up or shut up.
And on that note, you mentioned that. That's something that people talk about a lot. Playoff football is so different to regular season ball. I mean, you can have teams that struggle through the regular season and then show up in the playoffs. The Bengals are one of them teams that, they didn't. Yes, they're 12-4, but you don't always look so strong in the regular season. It's about health. If your players can stay healthy, if your players can stay fit, if you've got the numbers, then obviously you come playoffs.
100% matters. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the Bengals is crazy because the wild card round, the Bills were lucky to even get past that. The Bengals was even like, I couldn't. They had no business. The Ravens don't fumble. They win that game with a backup quarterback, and we're talking about something completely different. That's why this game is crazy, man, because people, we forgot about that now, because now we in championship weekend, but we don't realize that just 2 weeks ago, the Bengals, if not for the ridiculous call by the Ravens to try a quarterback sneak from the 3-yard line and Tyler Huntley actually reaching over thinking he could get it, that point swing is crazy, dog.
Yeah, you know what? You actually reminded me because I actually forgot about that game because obviously we're in championship week. And if the Ravens scored that touchdown, like you say, we're talking about a completely different season, a completely different team. The narrative of the Buffalo Bills probably isn't as negative because obviously they probably would have, Bengals, Bills, Ravens. Who knows what would have happened? Who knows?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I don't think it was a good chance Lamar would have played.
No. You make a good point. You make a good point. But this is why we love the sport. Any given Sunday, anything can happen.
Yeah,
What you're expecting to happen might not happen. And what you think is going to happen, it doesn't always go that way. We're going to move on to the Cowboys and the 49ers. America's team, they've suffered this playoff drought for so many years. I think it's a stat from 1995 or something like that.
Yeah. Last the Cowboys, time they won the championship. Yeah,
that's it. They were 12-5. The 49ers are 13-4. The 49ers of Brock Purdy go on to win 19-12. Now, tell me about this Cowboys team because, look, I got some Cowboys homies. I got some Cowboys fans. Right? I'm a Colts fan, so I can't really say anything right now. But the Cowboys did not do anything to replace Amari Cooper when he left that team. There was talk about OBJ. That didn't happen. Michael Gallup. You got Michael Gallup coming back from his knee injury. He's not that go up and get it guy. You leave him with CD Lamb. Dalton Schultz is a great tight end. Zeke Elliott. Let's be honest. Zeke don't have the same burst anymore. You can clearly see the difference when Zeke's on the ball, when Pollard's on the ball. Pollard exits the game. The Cowboys literally don't have nothing going for them. What next for the Cowboys?
Yeah, well, the whole thing about Zeke, right? The thing about Zeke is he don't have that role anymore.
That role.
So we really shouldn't even be expecting him to be that because that's not his role. That definitely hurt them when Tony Pollard went out. And I'll say this because I actually picked the Cowboys to win this game. The reason I picked the Cowboys to win this game is because I knew their defense would show up. Now, I figured if the offense, primarily Dak Prescott, he didn't have to play as good as he did in the wild card round because you couldn't have done that. That's the Bucs defense and the 49ers defense, right? He didn't have to play great. He didn't have to play good. He just didn't have to stank it up like he did. All of that considered, they lost by a touchdown, right? The 49ers turned the ball over on a muff punt. The Cowboys get it inside the 15, inside the 10, right? They put up a field goal shorter than an extra point, right? So you didn't capitalize on that. You had the 2 interceptions. The 1 interception was right in the red. Man,
it's a game of fine margins.
9 points. Dak gave him 9 points, and they lost by 7. So all he had, if he don't suck that day, we talking about an NFC East, NFC. But again, like you just said, any given Sunday, anything can happen in these games. And it don't matter how you win as long as you move on.
That's it. Trayvon Diggs as well, who should have had that interception again, which would have changed the whole game.
Oh, yeah, and he good for those. He good for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys continue to be that narrative, owner Jerry Jones, who's always got his eye over the team.
He always in the oatmeal. He always in there stirring the oatmeal, man. Like, go make your own bacon, dog. And by the way, speaking of Amari Cooper, now they see, and especially what they got for him, a 5th or 6th round pick, you shouldn't have traded him because almost every quarterback in this league needs, a certain foundation. There's one guy who don't. And that's for sure. That's Patrick Mahomes because we see him now with his big contract, and now he's a game away from the Super Bowl again. So it's very few quarterbacks who just going to elevate they team like that. Give that some help. He's still on the cusp of, he right outside that top 10 quarterbacks. It was a bad game, and it's going to be a long offseason for the Cowboys.
Talking about elevating their team, Mr. Irrelevant to becoming the irrelevant quarterback of the league in Brock Purdy. I mean, I can't say enough about the guy. You got to give him his flowers. Obviously, he's been on the run of winning so many games. But I got to say, the Cowboys defense, they revealed a few things that he was a little bit shaky.
Yes, sir.
Made some difficult passes, nearly got picked off a couple of times. But he's done the job. Sometimes they say he hasn't got to be Josh Allen. He hasn't got to be Patrick Mahomes. You just got to be safe with the ball, use your playmakers, and depend on your defense. And it seems like they're doing that right. How much have they impressed you?
Yeah, well, see, this is the thing. It's okay to give, people there's a lot of arguing going on about Brock Purdy. Like, oh, he got all these weapons and all this stuff like that. Well, yeah, duh. I mean, like, listen, at the same time, though, it's okay to give a guy some credit. Like, he coming in there and he doing his job. Like, it ain't his fault they dropped the interceptions. You know what I'm saying? He just doing what he do. And at the end of the day, they getting them W's.
And that's all that matters. You get the win and move on.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the championship weekend.
Yeah.
2 humongous games. And we're going to kick things off with the Philadelphia Eagles at home, Lincoln Financial Field, where them fans are going to be loud against Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, and the 49ers. Now, I'll tell you straight, I see the Eagles winning this game just because I look at that defensive line and they got sacks across the board, whether it's from Hassan Reddick. And you look at the 49ers side of the ball, obviously you've got Nick Bosa, who accounts for the majority of the sacks on that side. But again, flipping it back to the Eagles, I just feel like we've seen the consistency for a longer period of time from Hurts. I'm not dissing Brock Purdy. Obviously, he's been consistent for a good amount of time, and we've seen what he's done. But in a game that's going to be at home, at Philly, I think that the point spread keeps flipping. I think the Eagles are favored in this. Looking at the betting lines,
2.5 right now.
2.5. Yeah. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a game going to be won in their trenches. Lane Johnson, who's back, right tackle for the Eagles, that's a huge deal.
Yeah. He's a little banged up too.
He is, because I think he was supposed to have surgery, but he's put it off for the sake of going through these games. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about this one. It can go. It's going to be close, in my opinion. I do think the Eagles win, but I want to hear what your thoughts are on this game.
Yeah, so we just talked about Brock Purdy, and I think that train stops today. You already talked about the defensive line, right? 39 sacks in the last 28 quarters. That's 5.5 per game. They coming off a game where they sacked Daniel Jones, a mobile quarterback, 5 times. They just sacked him 5 times, right? 4 players along that line, double-digit sacks. Another one, Fletcher Cox, who plays inside, 7 sacks. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be interesting. Now, obviously, Trent Williams, he gonna hold it down. Mike McGlinchey, on the other hand, on the other side, he got ragdolled by Micah Parsons last week. If they get pressure like they usually do, this is over. In fact, I've told people that this could be a double-digit win.
Wow!
If they get that pressure, because what are they gonna do? They're gonna try to do is get the ball out of his hands quick. Brock Purdy, they'll try to get the ball out of his hands quick, and they got players to do that with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. But Shanahan, he's smart enough to devise a plan to try to counter that pass rush, but. If the Eagles defense and ADB start sitting on them routes,
that's it.
And it's working, then they're gonna be in trouble. And they have the DBs, they got the corners, in Slay and Bradbury. They got the corners to man up and just let them dogs go eat. You feel me? So now on the other side, is gonna be another chess match. The Eagles offense against the 49ers defense. Obviously, you got an elite run defense in the 49ers and an elite run offense in the Eagles. So something going to have to give there. But this where it comes in good for the Eagles. They've had games where they've won passing the ball, where Jalen Hurts had to go out there and throw for 300, throw for 30-plus times, throw for multiple touchdowns. They're not as tough on that back end. So if Nick Bosa ain't coming with that pressure, then it's going to be some problems. And you got a lot to cover there with Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and A.J. Brown, who I think will have a big game.
All right. So you got Philly winning this one, just like I do too. No doubt that's going to be a great game to watch. And that's the UK 8 p.m. game over here. And then we got the other game, the highly anticipated game that people cannot stop talking about for obvious reason. It's another rematch, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, here's my pick on this one. I'm going with the Bengals. I'm not going to lie. I have been a little bit shook because I've been seeing all the highlights of Patrick Mahomes, all the press conferences. He's looking like I see a little limp, small limp, but the fact that he's had a full, I'm gonna say full practice. I don't know how that's happened on a high ankle sprain, which takes at least 4 to 6 weeks. I'm a little bit shook. I'm not going to lie. It's at Arrowhead Stadium. I know the Bengals are confident. I know Joey Burrow is confident. I know they've got the weapons. You know, they're playing great football, and all that matters is how you show up on the day. But I'm going to stick with the Bengals, but I'm keen to hear what you think on this one.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go to Chiefs. But in this game right here, and really in either game, you know, but especially this one, how could you say somebody crazy for picking the Bengals? Like, they've had their number. The thing is, they've all come down to the wire. They've all come down to the wire. And Joe Burrow has performed better than Patrick Mahomes in every single one of the games.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it like this. If Patrick Mahomes is 70%, they win in this game. They going to win this game. Now, the Bengals offensive line, there was questions about the offensive line coming into last game. They held up.
Yeah.
You know, they held up. Well, the Bills, you know, they kind of, like we talked about earlier, they had a lack of pass rushers there, you know, but they held up. They was even able to run the ball. The Bengals haven't been able to run the ball up until that game versus the Bills, right? I think the Chiefs defensive front, you know, D Ford, Chris Jones. I feel like they take advantage of that this week, and they at least get a little. They do enough. Now, the thing I'm worried about for the Chiefs is they never could cover Jamar Chase. Them boys cannot. It's two teams that can't ever cover this man. It's the Chiefs and the Ravens. They just can't. Jamar Chase either getting a touchdown or a lot of yards against them two teams. So, but that'll help, you know, with the pressure. And as far as the, you know, Patrick Mahomes on the offensive side of the ball, now that he doesn't have a Tyreek Hill, he hasn't had that all season, and he still had one of his better seasons, right? Because now you don't really know which receiver you're going to get it from. You know Travis Kelce going to be there. But now they're starting to get Kadarius Toney involved a little more. Juju been kind of quiet, but he could pop up sometime. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, my colleague Matthew Berry said this, and I agree with it. I think MVS could burn Eli Apple. Like, it's just going to be he going to burn Eli Apple for a deep touchdown, and it'll just, you know, make it more fun because Eli Apple would talk the trash all the week, this whole week. But, you know, I'm going to go with the Chiefs making it, and I got the Eagles making it. It's tough for me to pick between the Chiefs and the Eagles, but I'm going to lean Eagles.
Yeah.
And if it's the Bengals, I'm still going to lean Eagles.
All right, so here's the question then. If the Chiefs win and the Eagles win, obviously Mahomes is going to have another week or so to recover, and you know he's going to get right. They'll be doing everything to get him right. And that's what we want
as fans.
Yeah. So let's say we get a 90% Mahomes versus, you know, a Philadelphia Eagles. You're still going to lean the Eagles.
Yeah, I think the Eagles will be able to have their way with that defense. I think it will be like a fairly high-scoring game, too. Like, I think both teams could go into the 30s.
Really? For real? Wow, that's a high-scoring affair.
Yeah, one of them games. You know, like how I remember when the Patriots played the Eagles a couple years back? Yeah. Feel like it could be one of them.
Okay, I mean, I'll give you mine. So I've obviously gone with the Bengals. I've gone with the Philadelphia Eagles. So if they make it to the final, played in the Super Bowl, oh man, I think I'm gonna lean.
Good game.
It will be, but I think I might have to lean the Philadelphia Eagles too. I've said it all season, right? I thought at some point that the Eagles were going to fall off, and they didn't. I know obviously they had Minshew come in and they lost a couple games, but Hurts brings a different element, you know.
Oh yeah,
Joe Burrow's great, but he doesn't have the element of escapism or superhero man like Hurts does when he's scrambling all over the field. But if those two teams make it, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. I just think they've been so consistent doing the same thing. And dare I say it, I don't really see a weakness on that side. I don't really see the weakness.
You're right. And that's kind of why, you know, I go with them. There's a little, I mean, I guess you could say they're off-ball linebackers if you had to. But, you know, Kaiser, White, you know, they do their thing, you know what I'm saying? But if you had to pick, I guess you would pick that. But, yeah, it's not really – when you have to say your weakness of the offense is the running backs, Miles Sanders being the weakness of an offense, that's pretty good because he just ran for 1,200 yards this year.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, that's a super quick review. That brings us to the end of the show. We've obviously touched on the divisional round and touched on the championship round, and we've given you our Super Bowl picks. We've given you reasons why we think our teams would make it there and who would win. Lawrence, thank you for joining the show. Appreciate you taking the time out. Where can people find you, and where can they see your work?
Yeah, man. All social media platforms at LordDontLose here. You could also find me Peacock 12 noon on Monday and Thursdays. We'll take that on out throughout the Super Bowl fantasy football happy hour with Matthew Berry. And then other than that, man, just check out the content on all the social platforms.
And if you don't check out the content, trust me, it's worth it. Go follow him and go check out that content because it's definitely worthwhile.
It will find you.
It found me, so it's going to find you lot too. Until next time, stay tuned, enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll be back for another episode soon. We'll be looking at the Super Bowl winners and talking about all things Super Bowl and football heading into the off-season. But until then, take it easy.